That's question 11. Don says, could you elaborate please on the nature and quality of the matrix and the potentiator? And Ross says, in the mind complex, the matrix may be described as consciousness. It has been called the magician. It is to be noted that of itself, consciousness is unmoved. The potentiator of consciousness is the unconscious. This encompasses a vast realm of potential in the mind. So right away we have the mind complex, and we'll see the matrix and potentiator here, right? So within the mind, I like that they say consciousness, the conscious mind, we should call it, right? That should be. I'm careful to make this distinction because in my teachings I use consciousness or awareness. We kind of struggle with terms here because we use a language that was that evolved basically to describe processes on a materialistic point of view. So awareness itself, that's what I call consciousness too. But in this case, we're talking about the conscious mind. So that part of the mind that is conscious. And I'm sorry if this causes confusion, but I can't help it. All right, so the conscious mind, that is the matrix of the mind. Has been called the magician. There's a lot of symbology there in the tarot, which, by the way, I do not plunge into. I'm just not attracted to interpreting symbology stuff. I lack that. So I can only speak for the things that I believe these things refer to. So in this case, there is the conscious mind, right? And then there is the potentiator of the conscious mind. It's important to know that the conscious mind is unmoved, meaning that is sort of static. It doesn't mean that it doesn't change. What is happening is changing, but that you can see it as the screen, and I think this is a good analogy. The screen on if you're watching a movie, the screen is unmoved. It's the matrix in which the movie or the light moves around, right? And so the potentiator is the unconscious, which produces this kind of activity in the matrix. At least that's how I see it. So that's why these two are easily studied within the archetypical mind in the tarot, because the conscious mind is simply this matrix in which everything is happening, but what is being perceived is moved by the subconscious, or actually the unconscious in this case. I think it's better to use the word unconscious. So that's the potentiator. You can already see the interaction between potentiator and matrix. You have your matrix active all the time, and is a sort of static medium in which things move. And that which moves is being fed by the unconscious into the matrix, much like the screen is this static element in which the light that creates the movie moves and creates the illusion of something happening, you see. And so the biases that are in the unconscious are basically feeding the matrix. So this is important. This encompasses a vast realm of potential in the mind. I suppose that means they're talking about the potentiator, right? So a vast realm of potential in the mind, and I think this draws the knowledge or the understanding that we only perceive a little portion of what our unconscious has, right? And so there is a vast realm of potential that we can perceive. So the more we work with the unconscious, the more we meditate and we become aware of what the unconscious mind is wanting to project in the matrix, then the more we can experience, right? So there's something. Let's move on to the matrix and potentiator of the body. In the body, says Ra, the matrix may be seen as balanced working, or even functioning. Note that here the matrix is always active, with no means of being inactive. The potentiator of the body complex then may be called wisdom, for it is only through judgment that the unceasing activities and proclivities of the body complex may be experienced in useful modes. So here I can only give a little bit of an insight, because what I understand of the matrix of the body is I'm going to equate it right away with homeostasis. There's a difference between matrix of mind and body. The mind is this sort of medium, right, that is awaiting the unconscious to, I mean, it's not just like it's inert, it's also the matrix of the mind is also looking for experiences, looking for novel things, is experiencing reality, right, through what has been. It's important also to say here that because we are looking at it from a veiled perspective, even though matrix and potentiator existed prior to the veil, there was a constant communication. I should have noted this, especially in the mind and in the body as well, but let's keep moving. This is important. Yes. Bear in mind that there is matrix and potentiator prior to the veil, but the communication or the knowledge of each other was unveiled, so we could see what the unconscious had. I wouldn't even call it unconscious, I think, because there was no veil. We call it unconscious now because there is a veil system. And so when this veil happened, now we are unaware of what's happening in the unconscious mind. So because we humans are studying it with a veiled mind, then we need to understand that the matrix is basically looking for the unconscious, right? It yearns for that. It yearns for that information that is there. So it's not like it's inert. It's looking for information. It's looking for experience. And so the static nature of the matrix is what I mean. It's in the mind, not in the body. That's where I want to get to. I think that's why the Tarot kind of nails it with the male and female qualities of the matrix and the potentiator, or the active, inactive. What does Ra says here about the matrix is always active, with no means of being inactive. Again, I called it homeostasis because, and that's why Ra calls it balanced working or even functioning, because now you see the conscious mind is what we are aware of. That's our waking state, right? And even in the dream state, we can say that there is a conscious mind there. But we have the conscious mind, and that it's different in the sense of how the conscious mind is reaching to the unconscious. That would be the male aspect of it. It's reaching to the potentiator, whereas in the body is if I understand it correct, it is the potentiator that reaches to the matrix. I think I'm right in saying this. So that's why the body in and of itself, just like the unconscious mind, and I'm talking about the potentiator of the mind, the potentiator is it's sort of balanced already. It knows everything. It has everything as it should be. It's the matrix that needs to reach out to project that, to see it, to experience it, to live it. Whereas in the body is the opposite. It seems like the potentiator is the one that is doing the work, if you will, and is reaching out to the always balanced body. So again, this is just my view on it, and the little that I understand. So the potentiator, that's why it's seen as male, whereas the reverse of it's the reverse of the mind. In the mind, the potentiator is female, so it's awaiting to be reached. And so the matrix of the body is considered female. Once again, that's what I know. That's what I see. I see that the body is always looking for homeostasis. It likes to be balanced. It doesn't like being in balance. That's why when it's in balance, it produces an effort to balance itself again. And that effort takes energy, and that's what we call illness or disease, dis-ease in the body. So that's important to keep in mind. And the activity that we do with the body, see, the active principle, the potentiator, is what gives information to the body. So I guess this all ties in with the whole cycle of the body and how it produces catalyst and experience and the significator changes, and then there is a possibility of transformation in a great way and so on. So it's different, whereas the conscious mind is reaching the unconscious, or the matrix of the mind is reaching the potentiator. It is the potentiator of the body that is reaching into the matrix of the body, and that produces, I suppose, the catalyst, right? So just see it as your conscious mind is always looking to understand the unconscious, and your active body, what you do, your actions, your movement, is what produces changes between within the matrix of the body, which is how it changes in itself. That's how I see it, at least. So the potentiator of the body complex then may be called wisdom, for it is only through judgment that the unceasing activities and proclivities of the body complex may be experienced in useful modes. So that's how I interpret it. I guess the beauty of this is that it can be interpreted in many ways, but I think I'm on the right line here. So let's move now to the spirits. Ross says, the matrix of the spirit is what you may call the night of the soul, or primeval darkness. Again, we have that which is not capable of movement or work. The potential power of this extremely receptive matrix is such that the potentiator may be seen as lightning. In your archetypical system called the Tarot, this has been refined into the concept complex of the lightning struck tower. However, the original potentiator was light in its sudden and fiery form. That is the lightning itself. And I kind of like this pair of matrix and potentiator of the spirit, because it has so much to discuss, right? I don't know how much we have within the raw material. Like I said, I never studied the Tarot in any way or form, but what I know on the raw material, so I'm quite limited. And I also don't remember what Ra said, because when I read this the first couple of times, I was just, okay, the Tarot is something that needs study, and I can't just elucidate anything out of what it's being said here without doing some work, and I never did it. But what I love about this pair here in the matrix and potentiator of the spirit is that, see, I love the matrix of, I think it's one of my one of my favorite cards is the matrix of the spirit. To me, this is what it represents. You see, the matrix of the spirit needs to be an illusion, right? For the spirit to experience itself, it needs to draw or invest itself in an illusion. That illusion is separation. And I love that the card is filled with a lot of demonic and dark stuff that is, it's the nature of the illusion of the spirit. That's why Ra calls it the night of the soul. Of course, it's lost. It's supposed to get lost in an environment which is completely opposite of what it is, right? The spirit is. That's why the potentiator is lightning, and we'll get to that. I also like the primeval darkness, because why is it primeval? Well, to me, it's because when we as humans, when third density arises from second density, you are in the primeval darkness of not knowing who you are. And so the spirit is in its most obscured form, right? It's just beginning to be discerned, to be synthesized now, to be seen for what it is. And so the matrix of the spirit, of course, needs to be this dark place and full of the symbology that is in the card. I forget all the symbology, but every time I read it, I laugh because it's there's a lot of interpretation, of course, that I've seen that is it's the devil and something that must be avoided and so on. I enjoy it because I know what it is to be invested in the separate self. That is the matrix of the spirit, to be involved in that illusion that you're separate from everything else. But yes, so why is the potentiator the lightning? Well, I also like that Ra sort of cleans out the symbology and goes straight into the original concept, which was lightning itself. You see, when we have an awakening, a spiritual awakening, it feels like a flash of lightning. It feels like, you've seen this. People who describe Satori, for example, which is the Japanese word for sun and lightning, which describes sort of, if I could put Satori in a context that you can understand it, is the punchline in a joke, where you're all the time confused and baffled by the story or awaiting something to be resolved, and suddenly you're like, oh, that feeling, never mind what you conjecture afterward. No, it's just that moment, that feeling. Oh yeah, that's the feeling of Satori. And it's also explained sometimes as a sudden moment of just pure knowledge blasted into your conscious mind. Yes. So that's why it's lightning. And it makes sense then that the potentiator would be this flashing moments of the spirit for it to be enlightened, really. This is why the concept of enlightenment has been diluted so much in mysticism. But that's enlightenment. Enlightenment is for you to get this. That's why I like to call him Satori. You get several Satoris. There are many moments where you say, oh, I get it. I see it now. These are the flashes of the spirit complex, right? And so, again, I have nothing else to contribute in terms of symbology and what they mean, and the disgraced priest and all of these things that are, or the devil. I forgot what the name of there's a lot of names that come out of Egypt and I guess other cultures that describe, but like I said, that's one, to my way of thinking, it becomes a little bit too much for me. And all the symbology, learning all of those things and what they mean, it gets into a mythology that kind of just doesn't resonate with me, to be honest. That doesn't mean that people who do it, they obviously, I don't need to make that explanation. But yes, I am limited to this type of interpretation. So hopefully it's helpful. But let's move on to question 12.